Hello and welcome back to the Preston Kelly Show. I am, of course, your host, as always, Preston Kelly, and today we got ourselves a little bit of another football show, recapping what has happened over the weekend and what's to come this upcoming weekend here in the NFL and college football world. We got plenty of topics to get to today. It's going to be a very fun show, so I appreciate you coming back. But if you are new, of course, to the channel, first of all, welcome. I'm very appreciative that you're here. But if you haven't subscribed yet, if you haven't followed wherever you're seeing this from, please do. It's very much appreciated. We're trying to grow as fast as we can and as much as we can in as short time as possible. But it would be very appreciated if you just dropped a follow and subscribed wherever you're coming from. It does mean a lot. We're only getting bigger here, and I can only imagine what we've got to look forward to. But we're going to go ahead and start out today with a little discussion with some big news that happened earlier in the week. As I'm sure everybody has seen at this point, the New York Giants football coach, Mr. Brian Daboll, Brian Daboll was fired this past week by the New York Giants. This is coming off of a bad loss. I think a lot of people would say the Giants were beating the Bears by more than 10. I want to say they were beating them by 10 in that game in the fourth quarter, and the Bears came back to win the game. This was not the first time that we saw the Giants have a collapse, you could say, in a game on the season, in a game that was pretty much very in their hands. I'm sure a lot of people go back to think of the Denver Broncos game where they were absolutely whooping the Broncos in that game, and the Broncos came storming back in the fourth quarter and ended up winning that game. And it's just been that kind of season for the Giants. There's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of positives and a lot of negatives. And ultimately, I think this was a decision that was looming in the distance, but we never knew how fast it was going to approach us. The firing of Brian Daboll, of course, made the playoffs one time with the Giants back a few seasons ago, behind a very big season from Saquon and Daniel Jones. And they have struggled to get back to that caliber of a football team, a playoff contender whatsoever at all. They have not been there at all. And this was a big year for the Giants coming in this season. Looking for expectations were obviously much higher than what has been shown so far in the season for them. Obviously, we think of them, the first thing that we think of is that stellar D-line and that stellar defense that they have. But the big problem for them here recently has been the offense. Can they finally find not only just a quarterback, but just really find a stable offense that they can count on and rely on, not only just for this season, but for seasons to come? And finally, it seemed like that we found it. They made a bunch of different moves to try and help, both short-term and long-term, including signing both Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson to deals and drafting Jackson Dart in the first round. Now, obviously, we know how it's worked out for them so far, with Russell Wilson getting the start of the season, getting the start for the team for the start of the season, ultimately getting benched for Jackson Dart, who has came in and has been absolutely electric. Now, what's been the problem for them? I would say the big thing for them has been injuries. Malik Neighbors, you lost him earlier on this season to a torn ACL and that big time knee injury. That was a big blow for them. And then all of a sudden it seemed like, okay, we're going to start running the offense through this guy, Cam Scadaboo, a fourth-round running back pick out of Arizona State, literally comes in and is absolutely just, I hate, don't want to repeat using the word so much, but electric again. He really gave this team a big push and helped them on the offensive side, and really became a fan favorite. And it was looking like this was going to be the duo, Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo. This was going to be the season's duo and what we could look forward to whenever we were watching the Giants play. And then all of a sudden, just a few weeks ago, Cam Scadaboo against the Giants has that horrific ankle injury, and then it's pretty much just over from there. I think a lot of the pressure got onto Jackson Dart, as pretty much it was all on him. And, it ultimately ended up costing him not so much of a long-term injury, but of course he did suffer a concussion this past week against the Bears, and the Bears comeback win. And this weekend it will be Jameis Winston's Jabo time for the Giants. Jameis Winston starting for the Giants. this weekend. And, it's just been very up and down for the Giants. And I think the big question will be after now seeing that Daboll has been fired, was that the right decision? I think there are a lot of mixed opinions out there. I am personally on the boat of I don't think it was the right decision because personally I think that Brian Daboll was a great head coach and he's a very, very smart guy and was really going to get that team clicking. And I would really love to see what he could do with a full season of not only just the defense, but a full season of the trio of Dart, Neighbors, and Scattaboo, and what he could do with that talent as an offensive-minded head coach. And ultimately, we won't get to see that this year with Daboll. And I just seriously think that I don't think it was very. We all knew that it was coming. I feel like that Daboll was ultimately going to get fired, but I don't know. Just I really don't think that it was the best decision, and I am very, very confident that he will land on his feet and he will find a job here at the end of the year or whenever that suits him best, whether it's college or the NFL. I could really see him going and doing something in either league. In fact, I could see him taking the Matt Rule route, even though Matt Rule he ultimately did come from college to the NFL. Um, my point being that just a lackluster NFL career. He comes into college and turns the program around. We've seen what Matt Rule's done with Nebraska and getting his quarterback in Dylan Raiola, who of course is dealing with a season-ending injury right now. But Nebraska's they got 7 wins. I want to say. I almost said it. I'm not going to say it. I almost said 6, 7. But they do. I think it is 7 wins that they have this season so far. So we've seen what Matt Rule's been able to do with Nebraska. Maybe Brian Daboll goes down to college. There are a lot of college openings everywhere in college football right now, and I think that there's a lot of good fits for him somewhere, maybe in college football. But even if he doesn't go college, I have no doubts that he will land somewhere in the offseason, maybe as a coordinator somewhere for a coordinator that leaves to go take a head coaching spot somewhere else or head coach. Of course, the interim coach is Mike Kafka, who is currently the team's offensive coordinator. I obviously don't see that being a long-term play for him becoming the head coach unless they have a miraculous end of the season. So overall, who are some realistic candidates? And I've wrote a few down, and we'll see ultimately what ends up happening. I'm gonna be honest. I think 3 of these are long shots, and then I have really one realistic option. I will say I think a lot of these are realistic in the fact that it would make sense for them to happen. But the question is just ultimately, will the team ultimately make the decision on making that? We know the general manager it slips my mind what his name is, but the general manager is, of course, going to be the guy leading the charge into finding the team's next head coach. So the first guy that I wrote down, and I feel like he's going to be everywhere. Literally any head coaching job, whether it's college or NFL, I feel like this guy is going to be like a big candidate for a lot of teams, or his name's going to get brought up talking about head coaching vacancies. That's, of course, Lane Kiffin. And I think a lot of people maybe will scratch their head a little bit and say, well, why? Why could he get this spot in the NFL? I think it's very simple. The fact being that the quarterback is Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart played for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. And ultimately, I think that that obviously we saw what that Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart duo was able to do at Ole Miss. Could Lane Kiffin ultimately take a shot at becoming the coach here in the NFL and working with Jackson Dart again? And I think obviously ever since Daboll was fired a couple of days ago, everybody has been talking about Lane Kiffin and the potential that Giants team would have if they brought in a guy like Lane Kiffin. I think he brings a lot of good energy to that program. You're talking about a very historical franchise with the Giants, and I think that, with the fans that they have, I think he kind of suits those fans. I think he suits the team, and it wouldn't shock me if, they at least made an attempt, if he had an interview maybe or something. I think it's very unlikely that Kiffin leaves for the NFL. I think if anything, I realistically do think that he will continue being the coach at Ole Miss. And if he even was to leave Ole Miss, it's going to probably be for a better opportunity at another school in college football, a bigger more historical franchise like an LSU or a Penn State. But, I had to write him down just because it would not shock me if, Lane Kiffin was potentially approached to be interviewed in order to take this job. But the next guy, another guy who has history with the Giants, and that's Bill Belichick. For those that don't remember, Bill Belichick used to be the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. And you always hear players saying all the time, talking about how much Bill Belichick loved coaching for the Giants and specifically Lawrence Taylor. Of course, Bill Belichick, currently the head coach right now at North Carolina. North Carolina has just really had one of those seasons, started off really down low, and then more recently here they've been playing really, really good football. We'll see how the season ends for North Carolina. Of course, I am a big North Carolina fan. You know, I think I don't think there's any doubt that people have that Bill would want to coach in the NFL again. It really would not shock me at all if the opportunity was there and they wanted to interview Bill Belichick. I think that he would take it, and I could see him being a finalist really for this job. A lot of young talent that they bring in an old school savvy head coach like Bill, and to really just kickstart this team and get the rebuilding done faster and turn them really into a competitor. Because realistically, I think if you bring the leadership in there, I don't think the Giants are that far away from being a competitor as long as they stay healthy and Jackson Dart continues to play this good of football. Game Scatterboo and Neighbors, the same thing. Bill Belichick obviously knows how to win. We've seen that he knows how to win in the NFL. You surround him with a good group of players and very skilled players, and he brings out the best out of all of them. And do I think that it will go to him? Probably not. I don't think so. Unless the Giants really are serious about bringing him back because of the ties that they obviously have. And I think ultimately that would be his biggest motivator. I think realistically, out of probably the possible NFL jobs that we will have opened at the end of the season, probably most likely being Titan. Obviously, the Titans and the Giants are the only main ones that are officially open right now. We'll see, maybe somewhere like Miami or these other teams that may end up having openings. I think the Giants are the only realistic option for Bill Belichick, and the one that would make the most sense for Bill Belichick if he were to decide to leave from North Carolina and go to back to the NFL. But we'll see. But I had to just throw Belichick out there because of the reasonings and how much sense it would honestly make if they were to make an attempt at Bill Belichick. This third guy is kind of just one that I would love to see, and I think a lot of hardcore fans would love to see. A lot of people will have mixed emotions about this guy for obvious reasons, but John Gruden, I mean, come on, dude. He's been obviously very vocal in the fact that he just wants to coach again. And I think it's very likely that we may see him coaching again here soon, whether it's in the college or the NFL. I think college is more likely than not, rather than the NFL. But man, Gruden always does these interviews with these recruits and these draft prospects, specifically the quarterbacks. And everybody saw how much he loved Jackson Dart whenever he sat down to talk with him in his interview and his film study with Jackson Dart. And I just think that connection would be pretty daggone good. And I would love to see that, honestly, if ultimately that was, if that's the decision, they really want to dial in on John Gruden. Again, talking about fan bases, I think he brings a lot of energy to that team and to that fan base, and really would strive for fans to want to see how that football team would play under a guy like Gruden, because I think he brings the best out of his players. Again, another very smart guy. Obviously, all coaches have to be smart in some aspects, but he's just a guy that's just one of those just obsessed with football type people. You can't get him away from a film study or a practice or whatever it is football related. Like, he's just so smart and so addicted to football. Those are the type of guys that you love leading your program. And, I would be shocked if Gruden was to ultimately become a front runner for this job. But again, I would love it, and I would not hate to see it at all. I hope ultimately, though, that Gruden is able to land on his feet somewhere here soon, just because he is too smart to not be leading the program right now. We're talking about a Super Bowl champion head coach in John Gruden. And yeah, I really would love to see him coaching again. College football, NFL, it doesn't matter to me, but get him coaching somewhere. Bring him in to coach the Giants, even though they're a division rival. Why not? We'll see. But this last guy that I wrote down is, I think, probably the most realistic to happen aside from the other three. I wrote down Clint Kubiak, who is the current offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of the main thing that all these guys have tied together is that they're offensive guys, and I think ultimately that is the route that you need to go. Finding a head coach is an offensive minded guy. You need a guy that's smart on the offense, just because that is your biggest struggle. I feel like the defense has been pretty solid. You're shaped up the way that you are on the D line. I think you ultimately want to attack an offensive minded head coach to really get that offense rolling with the trio of Dart, Scottaboo, and Neighbors. And why Kubiak? It's pretty simple. The success that you've been seeing with Seattle this season, the reason that they are 7-2 is because their offense is just playing so well. They have guys that you never even heard of making names for themselves, aside from Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigma, who have obviously proven themselves to be some of the best respected football players at their position. Jason's really is putting up numbers that put him in like really offensive player of the year conversation. Sam Darnold is putting up numbers that's putting him in MVP conversations, and these other guys surrounding him is really making this offense perform on a different level. And it all goes back to Clint Kubiak, because obviously the head coach, his name slips on my he obviously is a defensive minded head coach, Mike McDonald, I think. Yeah. But Clint Kubiak obviously has that Seattle offense really rolling right now. We'll see, obviously, how much it continues. They obviously have, that's a very tough division that they play in, considering that they play in a division with the 49ers and the Rams, who they play this weekend. And we'll talk about that game here in just a little bit. But yeah, if they continue on this level and we're seeing how Kubiak is getting Darnold to play the best football of his career, JSN putting up the numbers that he is, I think you really have to think long and hard about, bringing a guy like Kubiak in to kickstart this offense and kickstart this team and turn this team around into a competitor. But those are my candidates for potentially who could take over for the Giants. Obviously, I'm sure more names will come out as the season goes along and reaches an end. And obviously, I don't expect this process to start until after the season. So we'll talk definitely more about it when that time comes. But for now, we'll leave that be and set that to the side. But now we're going to go ahead and go over this past weekend of college football and the NFL. But we'll start with college football first. There were some big games this weekend and a lot of big wins. We'll start with, I think, arguably the biggest win, in my opinion, that happened this weekend, and that was Texas Tech's win over BYU. And it wasn't just any sort of win. We're talking about the number 7 and the number 8 team going up against each other. And Texas Tech made a big statement and beat them 29-7 in Lubbock. And man, that it's crazy that Texas Tech team is legit. We're talking about a team. There's still a lot of football left. Well, obviously the college football playoff bracket is shaped to be how it is. But it would not shock me to see Texas Tech enter the playoff as honestly a top 4 seed if they went out and win the conference championship, the Big 12. I mean, because, man, they are legit. They are legit contenders. That defense on its own has been playing good all season. That D-line, they probably had the best pass rush or the best rush attack just in general in all of college football. And then that Rodriguez kid at linebacker, man, he is, a lot of people have been stating him to be a dark horse for the Heisman. If they were to, invite a 5th guy to the Heisman show, why not invite him? I mean, they've been talking about how good of a season he's been having all year, and then he comes in that game, I want to say it was around 14 tackles, I think. I watched a pretty good bit of that game, except towards the end, and then a pick towards the end to pretty much steal it. I mean, he's playing out of his mind, and then the offense is just right there with him, really just playing a lot pretty much if the defense is on fire, the offense is on fire. And that's the reason why they're 8-1, 9-1. It's around that. That team is legit. And I'm telling you, if you're not watching Texas Tech football, you're missing out. That team is they're extremely fun to watch. And they really made a statement over with this win over BYU. And yeah, I'm excited to watch Texas Tech for the remainder of the season and see where they end up going into the playoffs at if they're able to stay hot like this. But another game that was very interesting to watch. I tried to watch as much as I could because the Carolina game was going on at the same time as this game, but Oregon and Iowa, I think a lot of people knew to expect this game to be very defensive heavy. It was in Iowa. It was raining, and Herbstreit on game day almost pretty much predicted with it being 16-15. This game ended 18-16 with Oregon squeaking out a very sneaky victory. Obviously, Iowa had the touchdown late in the fourth quarter. They went for 2 to try to make it 18. They missed it, so it kept it 16-15. Oregon responds by driving down and getting a last-second field goal to win the game. And man, I mean that was a crazy game to click back and forth from to see the perseverance of Oregon. I want to say they had over 250 yards rushing. It was around that. Obviously, with it being a very run-heavy game and a very defensive-heavy game. And I think that this is another statement for Oregon. We've been waiting for them to kind of get that big statement win since considering that they've lost to Indiana and I want to say the committee had their best win being Northwestern up to that point. So going into Iowa, a very tough place to play, they squeak out a victory, and we'll see where they end up going towards the end of the year. Obviously, still a lot of football left, and they've got some opponents left. It slips my mind who they have left. Obviously, I don't think they play Ohio State, but if Ohio State wins out, Oregon wins out, I want to say those two teams, they'll meet in the Big Ten championship. So that'd be crazy. There's a lot of playoff implications to be said here towards the end of the year, and that's why these gritty wins mean so much. And you can take wins whenever you get them. So Oregon gets a big win over Iowa. Another big win for this team. A&M beats Missouri. They beat them 38-17. A&M obviously undefeated still up to this point, the number 3 team in the nation. I think a lot of people were like, all right, we're at 8-0. This is how it started last year with them. I want to say they started 8-1 maybe. I don't know. They started off really hot and then they kind of fizzled out toward the end, and we're kind of expecting it like, all right, are they going to do the typical A&M thing and fizzle out here at the end? And no, they march right into Missouri and they get a very dominant win and they move on to 9-0, and people are like, okay, now this team's playing legit football, and they still have I want to say they play Bama, and obviously they play Texas, and then we could be talking that we're obviously talking about SEC championship. So I mean, again, like I said, a lot of playoff implications here towards the end of the year. Like it's best to play your best football right now, and A&M undefeated. I would like to say no. I wouldn't put them on lock yet. I don't think they're obviously not on lock yet. But I will say, no matter what, let's go on and say that they beat either Texas or Bama. You win one of those games, I think you're a lock, no matter what happens towards the end of the season, because we're talking about them maybe taking a loss or two into the playoff. But I think, this team's obviously playing very, very good football. Elko, very smart guy, coming from Duke, which I hate Duke, but it's fun to see Marcel Reed playing as good as he is, and that whole Texas Tech team playing as hot as they are in general. And another team I'm excited to see how it ends for them. College football's fun right now. Keep watching. You have to watch. So we've talked about the Big 12. We talked about the Big 10. We talked about the SEC. Now let's talk about the ACC, because what the heck is going on in the ACC? It seems like there's a new team scheduled in for the playoff every single week. Like the ACC at this point is going to have one team make the playoff, and that's probably going to be the team that wins in Charlotte here in about a month. because a couple weeks ago it was Georgia Tech. Last week it was Virginia. And then now all these teams are losing. Georgia Tech lost to State, and then Virginia gets beat by Wake. And then the team that was right behind Virginia would have been Louisville. Louisville lost to Cal, and now it's Pitt. And Pitt, of course, has a big game this weekend against Notre Dame. Game day's even at Pitt. And we're talking about, all right, well, if Pitt loses, then what? I want to say Georgia Tech is the representative for the ACC now still, just because of how rankings go. But obviously, we're going to have to see how the season plays out, who wins in Charlotte, who wins the ACC as a whole. And yeah, folks, I think we're really just looking at the fact that like we're going to have only one ACC team make the playoffs. And, I mean, it stinks. I want to see, the ACC get represented well, but that's just how it is. And, if you ask me right now, who do I think it'll be? I mean, it's hard not to say Georgia Tech, but, I just think they're probably the best team out of the ACC, out of the ones at the top. If Pitt wins against Notre Dame this week, that's massive for them, I think. I mean, I seriously don't know how you say that Pitt doesn't make it if they are able to beat Notre Dame this weekend. And then they just need to go to Charlotte and get stuff done, and get a lock into the playoff. But, ultimately it's probably going to end up being the same way that it was last year, in the fact of whoever wins the ACC is going to probably enter as the 12th seed, because they have to go lowest conference, the lowest out of the conference champs get the 12th seed. Clemson had that last year and ended up playing Texas, so it's rough, but it's try to stay hot and see if you can get a lucky draw and get a good matchup for you. But I think that's just how it's going to end up being. ACC is tough to watch right now if you're an ACC fan for football, that's for sure. And then the last game I want to talk about college football wise, I mean, I have to talk about it, was just the way that Indiana and Penn State game ended. Obviously, Indiana moves to 10-0, undefeated still, and then barely by one toe tap, they come out of Penn State with a victory. Omar Cooper, with that catch that he made, was one of the best catches that I've seen in a while. And props to the official too for not only avoiding contact with the player, but obviously getting out of the way and making the right call. That was impressive to see the end of. I will say that was something else. I mean, that drive in general was just, that represented Indiana football. I'm thinking that they probably entered that game, considering how Penn State had been playing on the season, probably a little bit cocky maybe, just with how they've been playing, and then they're able to lock it in finally and, end up winning that game. But, they have a lot to look forward to. They're the number 2 team right now, but will that stay? Probably not. I mean, considering if they win out, they're going to be facing most likely Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. If you win, you probably get the number 1. And if you lose, I mean, I think you're a lock, but where does that put you now at that point? It probably takes you out of the top 4 and makes you're gonna have to be playing week 1 instead of getting that bye like you really, really, really want. Each win is very, 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 very big in that case, and obviously they want to win out, get their stuff done, and hopefully win that Big Ten championship and make it a lock. Most likely them getting the number 1 and not having to worry about having to play week 1 of the bowl games. But that's enough for college football. We'll talk about it again here just a little bit whenever we go do our picks. But for now, we'll go ahead and review the NFL real fast. I wrote down 3 games, kept it short. The 3, I think, the games that made the most impact in the league, I will say. We'll start with the Monday night snooze fest. If you like defense and horrible football, then Monday night was for you. Philadelphia and Green Bay. Philly won that game 10-7, and it was 0-0 for the longest time until Philly finally broke it open with a field goal. And then ultimately Green Bay stalls out. Philly drives down, and Devontae Smith gets an impressive touchdown grab, and then Green Bay responds with a Josh Jacobs touchdown. And then that was pretty much it. Green Bay had a chance there at the end with Philly. They ended up going for it on like a 4th and 7 around, like just past the 50. And just if they got the first down, Green Bay's out of timeouts and they win the game. They didn't get it. And then Green Bay gets the ball back and they're like 20 yards from field goal range. McManus, their kicker, obviously hadn't been kicking good lately, but he's got a boot. And they were just trying to do anything that they could to get into field goal range. They squeaked their way past the 50, and McManus went to go try and tie the game and kicked probably the worst field goal attempt I've ever seen. I mean, that was downright horrible, and honestly, it was laughable. If you're Green Bay, you are probably hitting the panic button a little bit because this is now 2 losses back to back and very miserable performances against Eagles, who are obviously one of the best teams in the NFL, and then losing the way you did to the Panthers, a team that you should be beating, pretty badly, I'd say, considering the Panthers you come from, which the Panthers, they confuse the heck out of me. You beat Green Bay, and then all of a sudden you get lose to the Saints. Just doesn't make any sense to me. But Philly, obviously, feeling good about the win. They move on. I don't know if they have a bye this week or not, how it works for them. Don't know who they play. Green Bay, again, same thing. I don't know who they play. Do I have it written down somewhere? By chance? Oh yeah, Philly. Ooh, we'll talk about their game here in just a second. But yeah, and then it was just very rough to watch on Monday night. So we'll see. I mean, a lot of football left, but Green Bay, we really gotta get back on track and figure out like. I think we need to unleash Jordan Love a little bit. Like I forget who it was they were talking about. The worst thing for Jordan that they were doing for Jordan Love is I think they're keeping him contained, not letting him kind of make the decisions. And they've done that in the past. And obviously Jordan Love has really, it's just really been kind of one of those type of things for Jordan Love. He plays good and then he plays bad. It just doesn't make any sense, but we really just need to unleash Jordan Love and really just show off your passing game because you have a bunch of young, talented wide receivers, and then also let Josh Jacobs do his thing. And then you make the move for Micah Parsons, and you're expecting this it to pay off right now. And now you're looking at yourself. You're 5-3-1, and you're in a division with Chicago, who's playing well, Minnesota, who's now starting to play a little bit better with JJ. If JJ can start playing a lot better, then that Minnesota team's scary. And then Detroit's Detroit. So all right, it's time to wake up. So we'll see for them. Philly's going to be just fine. I think they were just coming off of a bye week, and Lambeau's a tough place to play, so props to them for barely getting a W, but I think just decision-making, you don't go for it there at the end. I think ultimately if you just punt it and give it back to Green Bay, you don't even get that field goal opportunity because Green Bay doesn't even get in field goal range. So, but we're definitely going to find out a lot about Philly in this upcoming game that they have that we'll dive into in just a minute. But another game, the second game that we're going to talk about is New England and Tampa. Now this one was a fun one. I think a lot of people were maybe expecting New England to show a little bit of, they're a good team. They got a lot of nice talented players, but not yet. Green Bay said nope, and they marched right into Tampa, and they beat the Buccaneers 28-23. Tampa Bay coming off of a bye week, after not playing their best football and dropping a couple games there before they went to their bye week. We're expecting them to kind of shut things down, I almost think, and really just Drake May really just proved why he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And Mike Vrabel is doing a heck of a job coaching that team, and there are a lot of people who are making names for themselves and bringing that Patriot-style team back to it. The Patriots are 8-2. That is absurd. The best teams in the AFC right now are the Patriots and the Colts, who are both 8-2. That's wild. We're back in the Brady Manning days, except it's Daniel Jones and Drake May. But no, it's fun to see. Drake May obviously played at Carolina, so I obviously want nothing but the best for him, and it's cool to see him ball out the way that he is. I have a friend who's a Patriots fan, and she was talking about how her dad's never been, it's been so wild to see her dad be this happy watching Patriots football again. Because I think it's crazy to think about, the Patriots. You obviously think about them being good for so long, and then they just went through that rough spell, of after Brady left, it was just it really showed how much he meant to that team. With them, you made the playoffs the first year that he left with Mac Jones, but after that, it just kind of fizzled out into nothing. And then Belichick leaves, and you're left with Gerard Mayo, who just didn't, obviously just wasn't, ready to be a head coach. And then you're just like, we need to bring the New England vibes back. And then Robert Kraft, excuse me, I'm sorry if you're wearing earbuds. Robert Kraft brings back Mike Vrabel, and it really turns this team around. And they're playing more New England type football, and it's really fun to watch and really fun to see New England play as good as they are right now. And then the last game I wanted to talk about, this game, I'm just talking about it for the Rams' sake, but the Rams beat the 49ers 42-26. I did not get to see a lot of this game, or a lot of the late games, considering I was on a different show with Steve Goodson and Two Man and Six Pack, which, by the way, I mentioned on the last episode, but I'll mention it again. If you haven't gone and checked them out, please go check them out. I'm going to try and do a lot of content with them, and they already do a lot of content. Steve and a lot of the people that he's associated with, they do a lot of content on their own and a lot of cool things. So please go show them some love. But while I was doing his show, this game was going on, and I would try to occasionally just glance over just to see a score. But I think this was a big statement win for the Rams. Stafford is balling out right now. If you saw the list that I put out a little while ago, a couple of days ago, Stafford is the top for my MVPs right now. And the more I've been thinking about it, the more I want to change it from 1 and 2. If you know who my 2 is, we'll talk about that in a second. But Stafford obviously playing great football right now, and it's been a lot of, you're relying on guys like, you have one of the best wide receivers in Puka Nacua, but he's not been healthy at times at this season, and then Devontae Adams just picks it up right there where he left off for him, and I think he's thriving in the role that they have for him. Sean McVay is obviously such a genius head coach, and really brings out the best in his players. And the Rams are 7-2 and have a big game coming up that we'll talk about here in a second. San Francisco, it's just been one of those seasons for them. They've played great football here pretty much the whole season, even though they've always been dealing with for all season long, just battling with players getting hurt and next man up. But they have thrived in the fact that the next man up really comes in and does his job and does a great job at it. So I don't think you're worried too much if you're San Francisco. At least I wouldn't be, in the fact of, sure, you have 2 great teams in Seattle and Rams battling out, but like, you're the 49ers. You're going to be okay. Don't panic yet, even though you did take a nice little smacking from the Rams. This happens every year. The Rams beat you, and then you're going to beat the Rams. So when you go play them in SoFi on like a Thursday night football or something, I don't know when the game is, but you're probably going to win that game, so it's going to be okay. So I'm not hitting the panic button yet, especially because Mac Jones has pretty much played great football whenever Brock Purdy locks for this season. You're still okay. You can still squeak in there, I think. So don't panic too much yet. But that's enough of the recap. We'll dive into my MVP list, and then we'll end the show off with some picks, if that sounds good to y'all, which it's like y'all don't get an opinion because it's my show. But my MVP list, if you didn't see the graphic, I posted it pretty much everywhere, this is going to be a free plug. Go follow my socials where you get a lot of content that I post aside from the recordings of the podcast on here. But I'll just go ahead and we'll start from 5 and we'll go to 1 real fast. We'll hammer our way through this real quick, and I'll give you the order and I'll tell you why I got him there. But we'll start with number 5, and number 5 is Patrick Mahomes. And I think a lot of people, based off of who I have on this list, this is the one that people are going to like scratch their head a lot. Like, really? Patrick Mahomes? Yeah. He's played great football this year. I know you look at the Chiefs record and it's 5-4. You're like, well, that's not very Chiefs-like. But I'm telling you, Mahomes is the reason why they are at least playing good football in general. He is really, performing a lot better, I think, than, this is his best season that he's had so far in a while. Not a lot of turnovers, and then he's just, with the injuries and the way this team has battled with Rice obviously starting the year suspended, Worthy been battling injuries all season. Kelsey's obviously not 28-year-old primetime Travis Kelce. I've already said it that he's proved me wrong. I had a lot of doubts going into this year, thinking him getting away from Kevin O'Connell and joining Seattle. And, I was just questioning the fact, like, okay, can he produce the same on those same levels like he did in Minnesota? And I think Minnesota's missing Sam Darnold a lot right now. And Minnesota, obviously, Sam Darnold has absolutely shined in Seattle and shut me up. Him and Jason are probably have been the best wide receiver quarterback duo so far this season. Obviously, if Stafford and Puka, or if Puka was healthy, I think they would be in that conversation. They still are, but but Darnold and Jason definitely far away been the best connection in the NFL so far this season. If JSN keeps it up, the way that he's performing, who knows, maybe he could sneak his way onto this list. But right now, Darnold for sure, with the way that he's playing football right now, just absolutely deserves to be on this list. And Seattle 7-2, and they got a big game coming up against us this week against the Rams, and we'll dive into that game when I make my picks. But Sam Darnold is one of the main reasons why that Seattle team is 7-2, and they're rolling right now. Top three. Number 3 is Drake May, for obvious reasons. We just sat there for a few minutes and talked about why New England's playing so well, and so I don't think I need to give much of an explanation as to Drake May. But these next 3 guys are just undoubtedly going to be on everybody's list, and Drake May for sure. So a lot of sportsbooks have him as the favorite right now to win MVP, and for good reason. That I don't think we all expected I expected that New England would play decent and play a lot better than they have been. And, I even had them as one of my sleeper teams but they are not a sleeper team. They are a legit contender at this point. They pretty much have a dominant lead over Buffalo for the division. And it's almost like they're almost starting to run away with it. They've already beaten Buffalo once, and then Buffalo loses to Miami the way that they did. It's just like, oh, wow, okay. Like, it's crazy to see New England playing this level of football again, and Drake May is the reason why they are. It's so fun to see, and it's, it goes without saying why he's number 3. But number 2, daggone it, he might be number 1 the more that I think about it. But Jonathan Taylor, he's top 2 for sure, no matter what, no matter where you have him. I think he has 4 hat tricks this season, 3 touchdown games. Like, dude, it's absurd. And then this past week, he runs for over 200 yards rushing. It's just like, it is crazy to see what he's doing. He's got the triple crown for carries, yards, and touchdowns. He's got 15 touchdowns, and we've only played 10 weeks of the NFL season. He still has 7 more games to play. And it's absurd to see what he's doing right now for the Colts. And it's pretty hard to say that he's not the main reason why the Colts are 8-2. Daniel Jones is doing his part, and that the rest of the offense is doing their part, and the defense has obviously played pretty well this season. But daggone it, Jonathan Taylor, what in the world? If he keeps this up for sure, if this is how he's going to play, obviously for the rest of the season, I think that he wins MVP 100%. I think MVP is more of a quarterback award. Ultimately, that's just how it goes. But how do you not give it to him if he's got 4, he has every potential in the world to get, just like his touchdown total could be almost near 30, honestly, by the time the season's over with. So I'm very, very excited to see what Jonathan Taylor has left in the tank for the rest of the season. So we'll see. But number 1 is Stafford. Reason being just because, he's turned the ball over twice. He's got over 20 touchdowns. Obviously when you have Puka and Devontae as your wide receivers, you are kind of expected to put up these numbers, as I've said before on different shows. But, just in the fact that the Rams were 7-2, they're playing great football. I got a lot of crap by giving Stafford the praise that he deserved whenever I was talking about whenever my first episode came out and I ranked the Rams as high as I did. Oh, Stafford's hurt. He ain't going to do nothing. Like, he's washed, this, and that. All right, come at me now. Come at me now. Like, you seriously cannot doubt what he has done and why the Rams are playing so good football. And, I have him at number 1 for MVP right now for that reason. And, if he ain't 1, he's number 2 behind Jonathan Taylor. It doesn't matter to me. But if he keeps this up, he's 39, he's almost near 40, and yet he's putting up these numbers. It's absolutely crazy to see. And so as long as Puka stays healthy and Devontae stays healthy, and they have those guys, and especially talking about Kyron, who is, I think, still one of the most underrated backs in the league. Like, that offense is dangerous, man, especially when you got McVay leading the helm. So Stafford's my one, and yeah, that's my MVP list. And if you don't like it, I don't care because it's an opinion. But I would like to know if you what changes you would make and who is your MVP and what your MVP looks like. So please leave it down in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinions and what you have to say in regard to that. But we're going to end off the show with some picks, college football and NFL both. I have to stretch. I'm sorry. So give me a second. Okay, we're back. All right, let's start with college football. Number 5, A&M versus South Carolina. A&M's a favorite on ESPN right now as a 19.5-point favorite. I think that's a little high, if I'm being honest. I think South Carolina covers that, but I'm taking 100% A&M to win that game and stay undefeated. I think with this win, it gets them to 10-0 maybe. I think they're the only 10. Or Ohio State and Indiana, I think, are the only 10-win teams. I could be wrong, but I think they stay undefeated no matter what, and get a good win over South Carolina. Number 9, Notre Dame versus number 22, Pittsburgh. This is a big game. 12 o'clock kickoff on ABC. I think Pitt. This is obviously home game for Pitt. If they want any shot at making the college football playoff, you have to win this game. There's no doubt. And Notre Dame's been looking for that big statement win. I think Notre Dame gets it this weekend against Pitt. So I'm taking Notre Dame. CJ Carr to really explode for the Irish this game and really break out a little bit. Get Notre Dame to 8-2. They're currently ranked number 9. Obviously independent, so they don't play a conference championship game. So every ranked game and every game for them is really, really big for them. So I think there's going to be a lot of motivation coming into this game. So give me Notre Dame to get a big win over Pittsburgh. A little bit of a American football happening for you. American Athletic Conference. South Florida, number 24, South Florida versus Navy. Both teams are 7-2. South Florida is currently the number 12 seed in the playoffs. They would face Georgia. This is big playoff implications in this game, obviously. Every game is in college football at the end of this point, but this is huge. I think South Florida gets a big win here, keeps their spot alive in the college football playoff. I know a lot of people are probably bitter at the fact that, teams like South Florida get in. It's kind of the same way they looked at Boise State last year getting in. They want to see the best of the best get in, but hey, you know what? Why not? Give me South Florida to get a big win over Navy this week and keep their spot in the college football playoff right now. So I'm going to take that. Number 11, Oklahoma versus number 4, Alabama. I mean, this was honestly... I think Bama gets a huge win here. I think Oklahoma's going to come in and fight. They're obviously still alive at their shot. They're trying to keep their hopes alive. But I think Alabama just pretty much eliminates them right here and gets a big win. Alabama has been pretty hard to stop ever since taking that week 1 loss. They've been unstoppable. They haven't lost a game since. And I think it continues here. And they get a huge win over Oklahoma. And Alabama makes a statement this game. And then the last game that I've written down is number 10, Texas versus number 5, Georgia. 7:30 ABC. This is a big, big win. I could definitely see Steve Stark almost perfect, but ultimately I'm taking Georgia. I think Georgia gets a big win over Texas. Now let's talk about the NFL. The Loser Bowl is happening in Madrid. The Commanders versus the Dolphins. Commanders are banged up. So sad to watch them play the way that they are this year. Obviously, I had so many big expectations after the way the last season went, but those are just unreal expectations at this point. I would love to see a healthy team and what a healthy team would look like and what they would be capable of, but we're not. Then the Dolphins were obviously coming off of a big win against the Bills, and Mike McDaniel's trying to save his job right now, and I think he keeps marching towards that. I think the Dolphins get a big win over the Commanders and Madrid, so give me the Fins getting a big win. Arguably the biggest game of the weekend. You can make a big argument for this game. The Buccaneers versus the Bills in Buffalo. Bills obviously coming off of the horrible loss to the Dolphins. The Buccaneers coming off of a loss to the Patriots. I think the Buccaneers get back on track in this game. I think they beat the Bills. I've been on record for saying the Bills can't win anything unless Josh Allen gets another weapon. I stand on that. I think it gets proven this weekend. And but Baker and the Bucks get a big win over the Bills and make a statement win, really, to people, showing that they are still a really, really good football team, even though they have dropped a few here lately. So give me the Bucks over the Bills, and then the Seahawks versus the Rams, 7-2. This is for the ultimate first place, the undisputed first place slot in the NFC West. I'm gonna go with the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks get it done. I just think the offense is too good. I think the defense is gonna explode for them, and find a way to control Stafford and lock down Puka and Devontae and keep them contained. And the offense is just gonna run all over and pass all over the Rams. And I think the Seahawks get a big win over the Rams here this weekend, and Sam Darnold makes a big statement, and who knows, maybe becomes an MVP frontrunner after this weekend if he's able to get this done against the Rams. The Chiefs and the Broncos. Broncos 8-2, Chiefs 5-4, coming off of a bye week. Broncos coming off of another horrible game on Thursday Night Football, barely beating the Raiders last week on Thursday Night Football. I might take the Chiefs, honestly, in this game. I think Mahomes makes another big statement, makes a statement win against the Broncos here, showing that they can beat good teams. I think the Broncos are probably the worst 8-2 team. It's out of the Colts, Broncos, and Patriots. And I think the Broncos are going to get a little wobbly here and get I think they dropped this game to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs show that they're still a very, very good football team and capable of beating good teams, even though they dropped the game to Buffalo. I think they get back on track here against Denver. And then this is the biggest game of the weekend. The Lions and the Eagles, Sunday Night Football. Lions coming off of the win against the Commanders. That was just a murder. And then the Eagles obviously had the game against the Packers. I think the Eagles just have a lot of bad mojo coming in with all the stuff with A.J. Brown and everything, and really have struggled to just show themselves as the same Eagles team that went to the Super Bowl and won it last year and hasn't really carried over this year. I think Detroit gets a big win over Philly here. I really do, and I would not be shocked if they beat the brakes off of them. I'm telling you right now, I could see Detroit winning this game by more than 10 points. Honestly, I could see them winning it by 2 scores. I want to say the game's in Philly. It just doesn't matter to me. I think they march in there and they get a huge, huge win over Philly. So give me the Lions to take down the Eagles and get to 7-3 and shut the Eagles up a little bit, even though the Eagles trying to show people that they are still on the same level that they were last year. I think ultimately they are. They still have one of the best rosters in all of football. I think they get showed out a little bit, that all this drama and stuff needs to go away in order if they want to win, and the Lions are going to expose that a little bit out of them. So give me the Lions to beat the Eagles. And that'll pretty much wrap it up for this week's episode. A lot of football, obviously, but this is when football is fun. Playoffs are right around the corner for college football, and then the NFL is really getting gritty down to finding out who the best are, the MVPs, all the playoff teams and everything. But this is when football gets fun. So if you're not watching the games, you're missing out. I highly encourage you to tune into what's happening in college and in the NFL right now, because it is fun to watch. But that'll do it for me and my all my stuff this week. I thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in. And please, like I said, if you haven't subscribed or followed yet, please go support me on all my different pages for all the content in the world. It means the world to me. And again, thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you guys have a great football weekend, and I'll see you next time.